Hello and welcome to Agents of Nonprofit. My name is Alexander Lapa, and I'm here to speak with everyday superheroes helping nonprofits. Joining me today is Elizabeth Scott. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, for people who don't know who you are, could you give a brief intro to who it is that you are and what you do, and what I call sometimes your superhero origin story?
That's awesome. Well, again, thank you for having me. My name is Elizabeth Scott. I am currently the president of the Junior League of Indianapolis. That is my volunteer time. In my professional time, I work as a senior plans solutions consultant at One America here in Indianapolis. I'm a JD MBA. I'm a wife and a cat mom, besides being a volunteer. I guess my backstory, which I love, I had relocated to Orange County, California, thanks to work. And I work in a pretty male dominated field and just really was not feeling pretty satisfied with life. And so was chatting with a friend from law school, and she was in a junior league in a different city and said, "Oh my goodness, Orange County's junior league is phenomenal. The work they do in their community is just unbelievable. And this is an all women's volunteer organization. You have to get involved." And so I went to one of their recruitment events, and 8 years later, I'm now the president of the Indianapolis League.
Yeah, that is awesome. I didn't know much about the league myself. I forgive my naivete, but I did learn some really cool things about it as I was doing the research for it, and I'm really excited to talk to you today. So thank you again for being here.
Of course.
So what was the main inspiration for joining the league? Was it what was you found that aligned with your values, or the fact that they help women so much? Like, what was the criteria, not the criteria, but the motivation for joining and then moving up the ranks?
Yeah. So the great thing about the Junior League is that I like to say we're a dual purpose organization. So we train and develop women leaders while serving our community. So for me, it was the ability to sort of hone and shape my skills as a leader that I could take back to both my work, to my home, to my family, but also developing those skills while making a difference in the community. Each league typically has a different focus area. Here in Indianapolis, ours is supporting foster youth and kinship care providers, which for me, helping support the most vulnerable population in a community is critical for a lot of reasons. So that dual purpose is what really spoke to me about joining the league.
And another ignorant question, I apologize. How many junior leagues are there in the U.S.?
Oh my goodness, I was afraid you'd ask. I believe we're actually an international organization. So our governing body is the Association of Junior Leagues International, and I believe it's either 237 or 239 total leagues. We have leagues in Nairobi, London, Canada, and Mexico. So we're all over the world making an impact.
That is awesome. So does each one have different characteristics or attributes, or do you guys more or less have the same commonality of helping the community and being focused on women?
So the first tenet of the league about training and developing women leaders is universal. That happens across the globe. But the supporting the community is where we do things a little differently. So I refer to our focus area being foster youth and kinship care. Each junior league can do its own sort of due diligence or research to determine where they can make the biggest impact in their community. So for us in Indianapolis, with the size of our league and with the issues facing our community, we thought foster youth and kinship care was the best place for us to be serving. When I was in Orange County, our focus areas were human trafficking and foster youth. So it sort of depends, which is great because you can really then focus on what your community needs and what support they need. So each league is a little different in that respect.
And the Junior League of Indianapolis has a rich history, right? You've been around for quite a few years now. I hope you could just highlight a few of the main points of where the organization has come from.
Yeah. So the entire association was founded in 1901. The Junior League of Indianapolis was actually founded in 1922, so we just celebrated our centennial. It was 10 women who wanted to promote volunteerism here in Indianapolis. We've had a lot of very successful women coming out of the organization, and again, it's that training women leaders. We have the Honorable Susan Brooks as what we call a sustainer, and that's essentially our fun word for an alumna. Congresswoman Brooks was and still is the sustainer in the Junior League of Indianapolis. She's a former congresswoman. And when you talk to Congresswoman Brooks, she will tell you the only reason she ran and was so successful as a congressperson was because of the training and development she received in the league. A ton of members helped support her in her campaign, worked as her chief of staff. So I love that story. Congresswoman Brooks actually won what we call the Mary Harriman Award. That is the founder of the entire Junior League. It is named after her, and it's an award that is given to the most outstanding junior leaguer of the year. And so Congresswoman Brooks was that recipient in 2020. We have other women. So Julie Davis is one of my favorite sustainers to point to, in that she took the training and development that she got in the Junior League to start 2 other nonprofits. So most people know Rev Indy. It's the biggest fundraiser for IU Health that happens in May. Julie helped start that with her training here in the Junior League. And she also started another organization called President's Roundtable, or PRT. And PRT is an organization dedicated to bringing together, we have 14 total members right now, other Indianapolis nonprofits that are led by women. And it's basically a consortium or a think tank where we get together every few months and share best practices, have trainings, and share ideas. So that's what the league does. It helps sort of spur on these other entities and these other community service projects. It's we always say, if you want something done well and done right, you get a Junior League woman to do it.
Those are 2 fantastic success stories. I'm happy that you shared them. So let's say, starting at high level, like because you guys, the league does quite a bit. There's certain programs you do. There's grants, volunteers, partners, all these great topics I wanted to cover today. Maybe you can just paint a picture of, high level. How do you help the community, and how do you help train women and serving women?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think the really cool thing, the thing that I love about the league, is that we actually plan and execute all of our events. So when you volunteer with other nonprofits, it's typically a paid staff or people who work there that will plan or develop the events or the activities for the actual volunteers, and they get outside volunteers to come in and work the event. We in the Junior League do both. So that is where the training and development of women leaders come. So we have different committees that will either, for example, our community council, made up completely of volunteer members. They have a budget, and they go out and find community partners in the foster youth kinship care space for our members then to volunteer at. One of my absolute favorite events just happened 2 weeks ago. It's our Women's Leadership Summit. That is put on by our training council. And it's, again, all volunteer women who have a budget, and they go find a venue. They find speakers. They plan an entire day for our members to sit down and become trained and developed. It was phenomenal. And then you mentioned we have grants, and that's another really cool aspect of the league and our history. We are able to give over $50 million in grants since the league was incepted. We just awarded $50,000 to our community grants winners. Those grants go to community partners who serve in our focus areas, so foster youth and kinship care. And again, we have an entire committee of members who manage that, from the open house where they get applications, the interview process, and the selection. And then ultimately our entire membership votes on it. And again, the other really cool thing is you get to move around the league and try different things. So one year I might be on the community council planning volunteer opportunities. The next year I can move to the grants council where I get to manage our grants. So that's really sort of, again, the 2-for-1 benefit that the Junior League gives, in that you get to figure out how to plan something and then you get to go do it yourself.
How many other roles did you have before becoming president during those 8 years?
Everybody starts out as we call provisional. It's sort of like a pledge if you think about fraternity sorority life. So you work through that. I started out on our comms team in Orange County, so doing communications. When I moved to Indianapolis, kind of stuck in that vein and went to marketing. I've always kind of had this leadership track, and it's, I don't say unintentional, it's just something that always seems to find me. So I went from marketing to our executive vice president to our president-elect to our president. So I've kind of bounced around, mostly operational things. It's something I enjoy, sort of working on the development of women and working on the development of actual organizations, making them more lean and more efficient. But don't get me wrong, I very much enjoy the community service of the league as well.
I think it's awesome that the entire league is run by volunteers. It
Mhm.
really gives it's hard to explain exactly why, but there's a certain sense of fulfillment I think that you can get when you volunteer. I'm curious though, is there ever a concern about level of engagement? Like when you have paid staff, of course, they understand they're being compensated for their time versus volunteers. I mean, obviously they're volunteering their time. Do you have any kind of, has there any been an issue where the volunteers need to be motivated through other
Mhm.
means? Or do you find that, the people here tend to be super passionate that they just love what they do and will commit and make time in their life to be able to allocate toward the league?
Yeah, for the most part, it's that second thing, right? Women are choosing to be here. They're not being paid. They're actually paying dues to be a member of the league. So they're committed and they're passionate and they want to serve the league and they want to serve their community. But just like every organization, right? There's the folks who and the thing I think I find most in our league, it's not a right time in their life. So let's say we've got an elderly parent who needs care, so we don't have the time to give that we thought we would, or we've got we have a pregnancy. There's things that come up in life that sort of interfere with their ability to do their work. And I say work with sort of air quotes. And that's, again, the great thing about the league is we're here as a supportive environment. So when these things do pop up in life, because they do, we're here to help each other. And so if you can't pick up the ball and carry it past the 10-yard line, let somebody know and they will absolutely help you with it. We offer leaves of absences and sabbaticals also to support women. But that's the great thing about the league. We're here to support and train and develop each other. So yeah, I mean, I think every organization will tell you that they have the occasional miss when it comes to motivation. And you talk to them about it, you figure out, is it a life issue? Is it a placement issue? Do you not like working on a budget? Is that what the problem is? Well, let's get you trained and developed so you feel comfortable in working with it. For the most part, our members love what they do and they love being here for sure.
That's awesome. And to become a member, is there a certain application process that you have to go through? And then once you become a member, I mean, I guess you can decide to volunteer at the organization itself or
Mhm.
just benefit from the organization's outreach. Like, can you just talk
Yeah,
about the membership path for people?
absolutely. So jlindy.org is our website. You can sign up to be a member. We do have, again, like I was describing, our provisional class, and that's sort of that onboarding process of learning about the history of the league, learning about sort of our processes and procedures, and introducing you to the women in the league so you can really start to make meaningful connections with other members. Once you get through your provisional class, you become an active member like me. And that's when you get to do all the really fun planning and organization stuff. And then you can move to what I was saying before was the sustainer or alumna role. We do have dues because we have to pay dues to our international governing board, and we do have a paid staff member. So our dues are pretty nominal. And you have some what we call flex credits, and so they're pretty easy to get. If you attended the Women's Leadership Summit, you would have satisfied those requirements, and those are basically just a few hours to make sure you are in fact engaging, plugging in, and doing the mission of the league. So either volunteering or being trained. And that's about it. Once you move to alumnus status, you don't have any of those requirements other than dues and sometimes in a little bit of that giving back, helping to train and develop the women who've come after you. So all of this information is on our website, jlnd.org, so women can check it out. We always say we take time, treasure, and talent. We'll take any combination of that. We're excited if women are passionate about serving the community and working with other like-minded women. We're excited to work with you.
Time, treasure, and talent. What does the treasure stand for or signify?
Well, yeah, treasure goes to the dues or the donating back to the organization. As much as we want to talk about volunteering, there is a cost, unfortunately, to volunteering. So if we can get our members to donate to our annual fund, buy tickets to fundraisers, that helps support the mission. So we have an endowment. That way, our endowment dollars can go to support the community partners, and then our member dollars go to support the actual operation of the organization.
Okay. And then to become an alumni, is there something particular you need to do? You call it sustainer. Is there a certain
Yeah.
moment of passage or is it a natural transition after a certain period of time? How does one become transition from a member basically to an alumni?
It's 7 years of service in the league, essentially. And
Okay.
if you take on higher level leadership, for example, president, I get counted for 2 years instead of 1 year. So once you hit that 7 years, you can make that choice to go sustainer. You're not forced. So you could stay active your entire league career. But when it becomes time, you can raise your hand and say, I'd like to move now to the alumni status.
And what does that, well, why would you do that? What are the benefits of moving to it or staying within, staying as a member?
Yeah. So for me, staying as members where the benefit is because you get your hands dirty. You get to still do
Hmm.
all the planning and all the volunteering and being in all the meetings and doing all of the things. But when you go sustainer, you don't have those requirements. So those 4 flex credits I referred to earlier, those requirements, those are waived. We do have a fundraiser as well called Holiday Mart. It's in its 53rd year. And as an active member, you're required to volunteer, do a volunteer shift at Holiday Mart. That goes away, and your dues are a little less. So a little less of a burden to go to sustainer. For me, the move to sustainer is actually more of, I would say, getting out of the way. We are training and developing women leaders. And if women like me stay in the leadership seats forever, we don't allow these other women to grow and to extend themselves and to learn what it's like to be the president of the league. So for me, the attitude about going sustainer is more of getting out of the way and letting these young women develop than anything.
That's a really good idea because I can appreciate the value of having, new blood, so to speak, in the organization to revitalize it, keep it fresh,
Mm-hmm.
youthful, full of new ideas. That's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Then moving on to the kinds of programs you offer. There was too many for me to go through your website and find all of them, but maybe you could highlight some of the ones you are very proud of or the ones that are the most impactful.
Gosh, yes. When you have an over a 100-year-old organization, you do a lot. The biggest one for me is always the occupational wing at Riley Children's Hospital. We helped build that back in the 1920s, and we still today donate money to Riley. If you look at our history, as I talked earlier, the vulnerable population, mostly children, has, I think, been a constant in our focus area throughout the 100 years. It just shifts a little, but it's always some sort of focus on children, which I think is so important. We've recently shifted our focus area to foster youth and kinship care. And we've really dug into some community partners with the Villages, Kids Voice, Awesome Indie, and things that people don't think about that impact foster youth and kinship care providers like Gleaners, so food insecurity, in the Indiana Diaper Bank. Because again, these folks are taking in a child, and in some respects, they're starting from scratch and they have nothing to help support this child who's coming out of most likely a pretty traumatic situation. So plugging into these community partners and helping elevate them has been extremely impactful and extremely meaningful for myself and I think all of our members.
And to help with that endeavor, how often do you have, I should ask, events like you mentioned the one that you just passed here, the Women's
Yeah.
Leadership Summit. Do you have any, how often do you have events that either members can attend or other people from the community can benefit from?
So we have events for members weekly, a lot of times daily. We also one of my favorite quotes is, "We take our work seriously, not ourselves."
Hmm.
We have a social component to the league. They're called special interest groups, and they plan various sort of social events. So we did a brunch at the Restoration Hardware restaurant here in Indianapolis. We have a craft group where they get together and they knit and they sew and they have fun. We have an adventure group, so they'll go kayaking. So between the service component, the training component, we still have fun components. So there's at least one event a week, usually multiple events throughout the week for members. Our external events are usually actually pretty limited again, because we're kind of a little insulated in that the events we create for our members to participate in. We may partner with another organization in the community, but most of our events are actually done for the benefit of our members. So that is, again, a benefit to joining, is you get to participate in all these really cool events that you got to plan.
Okay, so if I wanted to volunteer, for example, with the league, it would
Mhm.
be easier, better. I'm not sure what the correct word would be, but to become a member first and then participate, rather than, because there are so few external events, there isn't much of an opportunity as an external volunteer to participate.
Exactly. I get that question
Okay.
quite a bit. I actually have businesses who have reached out about wanting to volunteer at our events. And that's not the design of the league. In order to take advantage of the programming, most of our programming, you need to be a member of the league. Now, we do have some external things like I talked about Holiday Mart. A lot of people in the Indianapolis community familiar with that. We're starting a second fund development event, April 27th, Hats and Horses here in Carmel. So we do have some externally facing things for folks. But yes, if you want to immerse yourself and really volunteer, you need to be a member of the league.
And does the same apply for grants as well? Do you need to be a member to receive a grant, or is that allocated to external people or
That's
organizations?
completely external. Yes, thank you
Okay.
for yes, those are always going to go to external. We have two grant cycles. I mentioned our community assistance grants. Those go to nonprofits in the community that serve in our focus area. And then that one just wrapped up. Our second grant cycle just started. It's our trust fund grants. Those grants are given to initiatives that serve children with mental and or physical disabilities in the Marion County area. So with the community assistance grant, you can be in Marion County or a donut county. For the trust fund grants, those nonprofits have to be located in Marion County. So yeah, those are all external nonprofits that receive our grants.
And then you mentioned other organizations like partners. Do you at any moment have partners or work with partners that are external to the organization, or do you prefer again having that close network of? I'm not sure if membership is quite the right word, but how do you work with partners? I guess is the broader question I'm trying to ask.
Think we approach this the way a lot of for-profit entities approach their work, and that we have three tracks in how we work with community partners. The first track is that we constantly monitor and evaluate our current partners. So we do have a relationship with two community partners right now, and we're constantly checking in with our member base to make sure that they are being satisfied with their volunteer opportunities, that they're feeling satisfied, and that they're giving back to the community and it's meaningful. We're also checking in with those community partners to make sure what we're providing still works for them and is still impactful for them on their end. While that is going on simultaneously, we have what I would call sort of the R&D process, where we have a committee that is constantly out looking for new and different community partners than the ones we already work with. So what are those emerging markets? What are those new community partners that are popping up in our focus area that could benefit from our time, treasure, or talent? And then the third sort of prong of this evaluation is we every few years evaluate our actual focus area. I had mentioned our focus area is foster youth and kinship care providers. Previously, it had been preparing students for academic success. And by the time we got to the end of that, we really felt like we sort of made the impact we could make. And there wasn't much else meaningful there for us to do. So we needed to dig in and figure out where did we need to take our time, treasure, and talent. And we partnered with IU Health. We actually put together an entire ad hoc that worked over a year to assess the community needs in Indianapolis and then compare them with what our abilities were. And that's when we landed on foster youth and kinship care. As a women's organization, I'll tell this as a side story. One of the areas that really popped up and we thought would be very important was mother-infant mortality here in Indianapolis. As most people know, we have a very high rate of mother-infant mortality. And as a women's organization, it really sung with us that something we could play in. But as we started talking to community partners, there wasn't a lot we as volunteers could do because we were not trained healthcare professionals. And so getting our members in to actually have a meaningful volunteer experience didn't really feel like a fit. So those are the things we have to constantly look at to say, are we being impactful for our members? Are we being impactful in our community? And where do we need to head next?
I wanted to ask about the training part because you said it makes sense you can't train on everything, but as a member, are there courses that a member can take or specific areas of knowledge that they can gain? Like someone, for example, like Congresswoman Susan Brooks, like was there certain elements, maybe public speaking or presentation skills or, certain kinds of training or programs that you can offer members to help them in specific ways to become better women?
Yeah. So our training, the dual purpose organization always resonates. Our training comes in two ways. First, it's your placement. Like I said, we actually run the organization ourselves as volunteers. I am not paid to be the president. I have a full-time paid job on top of it. So I am constantly being trained as a leader sitting in this seat. For example, having this conversation with you is training me on how to be a better public speaker and how to present better. Learning how to manage a budget, learning how to run an endowment. I'm constantly sort of on the job trained in my placement. When I was our marketing vice president, I had to learn how to use Canva. I had to learn how to use MailChimp. I had to learn how to use all of these softwares to create the marketing component of the league. So there's on the job training in your placement. And then we do have a whole training committee then who puts on actual training. So the Women's Leadership Summit, the theme this year, which I loved, was Be Your Own Barbie. And it basically was talking about developing you for who you are and taking your own strengths and growing on your strengths. So yes, you can attend a training on budgeting. You can attend a training on public speaking. You can also attend an Enneagram training. You can also attend a training from a sommelier on wine. So we have these two tracks of training, the on-the-job training for the job that you serve for the league, but then also actual formalized training from our training committee.
With training then, sometimes certain organizations offer some kind of certification, whether it's something simple like a plaque or a certificate or something more official. And I've done, for example, public speaking classes and night classes. Sometimes they give you kind of not even a diploma, more of a recognition that you've passed this course. Sometimes it's more official, sometimes it's less official. And I'm curious to know, for the league, when you do offer training to your members, what do they expect to receive at the end? Is it more informal training or more formal training with an actual certificate at the end?
Yeah, so currently it's more informal training. We don't offer any certificate trainings. That's obviously something the league, as we grow and develop, the league could look into. But no, currently our training is much more informal. And again, I like to think our training really comes from that on-the-job training that you get when you sit in the seats, when you serve as a member.
Yeah, when you're, that's the best form of training, right? When you have to do something, you have to learn how to do your job and do it well. You learn the most, right, by doing. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and going back to that supportive community, it's really cool about the league in that you've got women surrounding you that want you to succeed and want to help you. So in some respects, it's less scary to raise your hand and to stretch yourself and to take on something that you may not know, but you want to, because you've got a safety net of women who are there to help you and lift you up and support you, versus at work, if you raise your hand and you mess something up, you might get fired. In the junior league, you're not getting fired. You're going to have a woman who says, all right, let's sit down and talk through this. Let me show you how to do this. Let's grab coffee. We'll talk about it. That's one of the really great things about the league is you can get this on the job training without the fear of failure, because you've always got a built-in safety net.
And that's extremely powerful to know that, you can make mistakes along the way. You can't ask for help without worrying about your position or your career path. And having that supportive network that you can reach out to, knowing that everyone's there for everybody else and supporting each other, that's a fantastic organization to be part of, because they're not so common these days.
No, absolutely. It's like I say, it's that stretch without the fear.
So I'm curious then, from more of a business side of things, I love going a bit behind the curtain to see, how is it that you're able to do everything that you do? And I know it's a kind of a vague question, so I'll try breaking it down. But is there certain, being a techie myself, any tools that you use, apps, systems, processes, just to keep everything moving in a certain direction, or how to decide what to do next? Obviously, the board of directors, I'm sure, is a big part of it. But I'm just curious to know, overall, how do you choose your path?
Yeah, so we always have to stay focused on the mission of the league, training and developing women leaders while in the service of the community. That is the overarching principle that Mary Harriman founded this organization on in 1901. So that's always the North Star. And then you just sort of whittle from there, right? You kind of start narrowing and tailoring as you go. I'm sure other people have talked about with COVID, how much things shifted and how much things changed. So really trying to be agile and nimble and really trying to understand what members want out of a member organization and how those wants and needs can then serve the community. Yeah, that's always the the struggle and the victory in serving in these positions is kind of figuring that secret sauce. And that's like you said, why I have a board of directors. I have a phenomenal, I talked about the support system, the safety net. I have a phenomenal paid staff member who runs the day to day. I have a unbelievable executive vice president who keeps me afloat. My treasurer and secretary are just rock stars. And then the rest of my board are just phenomenal women. And that's not to say all of my members aren't, but just sitting in my seat, like that's my safety net. Those are my people. That's my tribe, right? When you talk about sort of systems, we do have what I would call a CRM, for lack of a better description, that helps us it's a repository of all of our historical documents. So when we look at things, we can say, well, what happened did we ever consider doing this? Well, somebody will raise their hand, one of the alumni, and say, well, in 1974, I think something like this happened. And we could go back to our historical data and be like, oh, look, yes, here are the minutes from that meeting. And here's why it didn't work. And here's this. So we've got that. It also helps manage our members. So it keeps track of those flex credits I talked about, keeps track of the dues, keeps track of our voting. So we do have some technical support, but truthfully, for me, the success and the constant moving forward of the league and development of the league, it's the women. It's the women in that safety net who constantly make that keep rowing towards that North Star every day.
And then pushing a bit further in the system side of things, I'm curious to know how AI has impacted the league, if at all.
So with AI in the league, it's interesting. The only place that has sort of popped up for us so far, and I say so far because we know how the world changes. So this answer could be very different in 2, 3, 5 years, but so far, it's in our grant making process. So people will use AI to do grant applications. Completely legitimate, completely great use of the technology. But for us, then the onus has come on our committee to really make sure they know and they understand who these potential grant winners are. So we've always done site visits where we go out and see potential grant winners and see what they do. But I think our committee has gotten even more, I don't want to say critical, that's not the right word, even more shrewd as they evaluate applications and potential winners because of AI. But like I keep talking about, the mission of the league is training and developing women leaders. And that is working with the women. That is being in with the women. But like I said, who knows in 2 or 3 years what the world looks like?
Yeah, the world is changing so quickly these days, it's hard to predict. But okay, I'm curious then, let's imagine there was a smaller, younger nonprofit organization listening to this now. Is there any advice that you could give to them to either inspire them or motivate them or kind of help them believe in their mission, something that you've like a lesson learned along the way from the league that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, it's the North Star. It's know that mission, know the purpose, and never stray from it. We all want to change the world. We all want to make the world better, and we all want to do all of the things, but you can't be a jack of all trades, master of none. You have to stay true to your vision. You have to stay true to your North Star, and let somebody else fix the other problems, because you can't fix all of them. So really just staying true to your identity. That for me has been the biggest lesson, because again, I want to fix the world. I want to change everything, but I can't. So let me make the biggest impact in the lane that I can make it in.
Awesome advice. And then finally, what is the short-term vision or short-term plan for the league? Anything happening that you can share, of course, because there might be some secret stuff happening, but anything you can share with the audience in terms of what you have planned in the near future for the league?
Gosh, it's sort of, I don't want to say business as usual, but yeah, we just updated our strategic plan. So that's super exciting for us to, again, keep on that North Star, keep on that path. Where are we headed? The biggest, probably most exciting thing, we got our grants. I talked about our trust fund grants are going to go out here in the next few months. And then our big new exciting fundraiser. So on Saturday, April 27th, 6 p.m., we're doing what's called Hats and Horses. It's a fun little play on the Derby. We're going to have a band and some snacks and some silent auction. And all of the money that goes to ticket sales and donations go back to directly support the Junior League and training and developing our women leaders. So excited to see a new fundraiser event kick off for us. But yeah, for us, we're still just out there developing those women leaders and really trying to make an impact in the community.
Well, thank you for everything that you do. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure the women in your area appreciate it greatly as well.
Thanks for having me. If you can tell, I love talking about the league. It's something I'm passionate about. So I just appreciate an opportunity to share it.
Yeah, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for today. I'm Alexander Lapa, and I hope you join me again in the next Agents of Nonprofit.